Right. Right, we're live on YouTube. This is the Party Wall channel. Welcome. Welcome to the party, as they say. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. But anyway, too late, I've said it now. So that's the problem with live stuff. Right. So welcome to the weekly Party Wall show. Dil from Chief Surveyor 1996 Party Wall. Every week we discuss party wall issues. Yeah, this is a serious subject, no mucking around. Right, let's get going. So this is a question and answer session. Every week we answer your questions. Send them in the chat or email me, you know the drill. And as we're on, yeah, anyway, let's get on with it. Right, so we're talking about outbuildings. I was thought in a minute I might have mucked this up. Yeah, sorry, let's go back a bit. I'm going to do a double program today, so 2 for 1, showing you all the contents. Right, so I'm going to go through a little bit of the process for doing, working out what notices to do. So this is a diagram I put together. So here's your project. You start with your project. So for homeowners, they think about building an extension, loft conversion, or taking, well, actually, they don't really talk about chimneys. They talk about outhouses. So you start with your project. Now, out of that, you work out the notifiable works. This is a 2-part bit here. So assess the notifiable works and determine the adjoining owner's property. I should really split that off. So just to make you aware that. All right. So you assess the notifiable works. So project might be, I'm going to build a rear extension. Now, the Party Wall Act doesn't worry about you building a rear extension. All it's concerned about is excavation and building on the line of junction. All right. Or let's talk about the example that we're going to do later on, outhouses. What are we doing on outhouses? You're saying, great, I'm going to get an outhouse. That's going to be my office for a future lockdown. Hopefully we don't get any. Or my commute to work is going to be 5 seconds. So I'm just going to walk down my garden and go into my outhouse office. Okay, so you're thinking my project is outhouse. In terms of Party Wall Act, what you want to then think is that's your project. What could be the notifiable works? Yeah, and there's only 3 sections you need to think about. Section 1, section 6, and section 2, 3. 1, 3, and 6. That's it. It's really simple, right? Once you work out the notifiable works, you then determine the adjoining owner property that those works can affect. This is the process. I'm thinking slightly higher. I've obviously taken my brain vitamin, so I'm thinking slightly higher. Try slightly at a higher level at the moment. So you've found out the adjoining owner property, and you determine whether that property is in scope or not. Next thing we do is you look at the land registry, you do a search on it, and then you might have to go back. So for example, if it's split into flats, then you might have to go back and say, well, it affects the top flat or it affects the ground floor flat, so we need to serve it to the freeholder and the leaseholder, or upstairs freeholder or leaseholder. So that's sort of scenario, yeah? There might be a bit of back and forth there. That's why there's a double-sided error. Once you've done the land registry searches, now this is important. It's for the notifiable owners. It's not the property. I can see where the disconnect comes in. You know, most property law is based around property. Occasionally there are some based around the ownership. This is one that's based around ownership. I don't know why. I don't really agree with it. Increasingly, I'm disagreeing with it more. But anyway, I have to give you the advice to best deal with keep you compliant. Okay, so you work out the notifiable owners. Now, you then work out the notices for each of those owners. Basically, it might be different for each owner. So, for example, let's say you're building a rear extension. You might have section 1 on this side, but no section 1 on the other side. And both might come under section 6.1. So that's an example of it, right? So there are different types of works. I'll go through those in a minute as well. So then you do notices for each type of property. So you might think you're doing a rear extension. What are the notices that apply? Well, section 6 and section 1, but they don't apply to all the adjoining owners' properties. Yep. So this is why it's a bit higgledy-piggledy. So for each property, each adjoining owner, you'll have a set of notices for those. They can be similar, but they can also be different. So just bear that in mind. So what was I talking about? What am I gargling about? Let's get into it. So rear extension, the notices that usually apply are 6.1 and 1. Occasionally 6.2, unless you're going very deep or you're in slope. For a loft conversion, it's sections 2 and 3. There's section 3 notices, section 2 works. So those are the notifiable works, and there's only 3 section numbers you need to look at: 1, 2/3, and 6, 6.1, 6.2, right? Now, porches are very rare, but I've included them here. I've had to do some porches, and didn't think I'd see an example of it, but I have come across some. So yeah, so porches, you could skip out of that, I wouldn't include them, but anyway. The big thing to watch out for porches is when you're, this is nuts. It's all about overspilling on the land, trespassing. That's not right. So, no, porches not very good. Right. Outhouses, really hard. You've got to really understand the rules and can not quite get around the rules, but you can organize your work so some of the rules don't apply, but not all of them. And it's mainly the section 1. But the irony is section 1 is the most beneficial. So I'm not going to go into that. So this is a table, and it's actually in, so this is, if you Google it, you'll get this booklet from the government. It's very good in terms of how it explains the law. Not very good, unfortunately. Not the best for giving you section notices. And this is the much better, well, I'm going to say it's much better, but we've created it. So it's to augment that or help you understand the act. So you can get this absolutely free. Just download it in the description. All the details are in the description. Just grab it free. Okay. So, and there's all the section numbers. This is what I was talking about. There's an example of section 1, section 2, 3, and section 6. And these are really simplified. Cross out, put your names in, and bingo. So that's the YouTube show. And I'm going to just recap that. So let's go through this process again. Just do a little roundup and a little summary. So get your project, work out the notifiable works, determine the property that is then affected, then do a land registry search on that property. And then if that property is split into flats, you might have to go back and do a bit of back and forth. So that's why there's a little bit of a loop. Maybe I should do it as a loop. Right? And then you've got the notifiable adjoining owners. You create the notices for each of those owners. And then you go to service. Now, those are the notices. There's the notice examples. But in this template, there's also a process and there's a checklist. So get this, it's absolutely free. Just grab it from description. Right. Now, promised you a double session, so I'm going to do another session for you now. Right. So pretend I'm giving you all the intro to the YouTube channel and so on. The one I did at the beginning, all of it again. This is the YouTube channel we're here for. No, anyway. Right, so let's do a bit more discussion. So I've had this question before, and to actually answer it takes about 40 minutes, but I'm going to give you a quick version. So outbuildings. Everyone's deciding in the lockdown. I've had enough of working from home. I need to get an outbuilding so I can commute to work in 3 seconds, work from there. and then come back for a cup of tea, and then you know what I mean. It is a good idea, actually. Saves you having to cut the grass at least, right? So that's the outbuilding you're trying to build. What section numbers are applicable depend on the surrounding neighbors. So for example, that's your outbuilding, and there's nothing around within 3 meters, and you're going to be excavating. There's no notices. Right. So that's section 6. So for example, if the red one's your outbuilding, and you've got another outbuilding that's within 3 meters, you need to look at section 6. Now, what are the rules for section 6? 6.1 specifically, right? Okay, so there's a double test for it. The site and the depth of the excavation to make, okay, let's go on the checklist, right? So, sorry, that's the actual section number. I'm not going to read it out to you. It's a bit late in the evening for that, but let me summarize it. So if your building is within another building that's it's not a building, it's within 3 meters of their foundation, and notice the and to a lower level. So you've got to tick both there. Yeah, one ticks, the other doesn't, you're okay. So the next question you're probably thinking is, how do I know what their depth of foundation is? Now, if a building is built the post-80s, they're probably going to have deeper foundations, because of the rules changed 76 to 80. That's when the heat wave hit and everybody started to have deeper foundations. You also, I'm thinking post-2000s, I was thinking post-80s. Post-2000, you could probably get this planning apps and so on planning portals. So you'll know if it's a later building. They might even have building control drawings on it, possibly not. So you can judge their foundation. So generally, rule, if in doubt, serve, and if it's pre-80s, it's likely to have deep foundation. So that's the 2 rules you should really use. Okay, so what we need to serve a section 6 valid notice? You need to have plans and sections that show the following: the site and depth of your excavation, the building structure and its site. So make sure you've got all 3. Now I'm going to run through quickly what do I mean by that. So that's a section 6 excavation. There you go, that's what it looks like. Sorry, that's a section 6 section drawing. People just call it a section. Basically, you pretend you're cutting in the middle of a cake, and that's what your detail of your foundation will look like. Yeah. This is a plan. So this is an overview of where your building fits within your extension. In this example, that's the extension, that's the original house, not quite an outbuilding. There's also a site map that I'll come to in a minute. So the other thing that you've got to consider with outhouses is section 1 notices, section 1.5, right? So there's 3 types of section 1.5, section 1.2, 1.6. There is a video on this separately, but I'm just going to go through it quickly, okay? So if you're building on the line of junction, which means you can think of it as a boundary, it's not quite correct, but let's say there's a difference between boundary and a junction with a separate video. Basically, the line of junction runs in the middle of the wall. It could run through any point. So that's a 1.2. Now, don't serve a section 1.2 to your neighbors for starting, because they'll get upset because they're going to try and think you're stealing their land. In fact, you're not. It's the other way around. You're giving them right to use your wall. But if that's what's in your mind, you should start with a section 1.5 notice and then negotiate into a section 1.2. But just bear that in mind. That's my personal experience advice. Right, okay. Section 1.6 is almost redundant now, because placing adjoining footing on adjoining owner's land. Problem is the footing becomes a trespass unless it's agreed in writing. So that's important. So the solution, so that's where the boundary would come in. That assumed boundary. So basically you're coming up to the line and you're projecting your footings over. What's the solution to that problem? If you probably read it ahead, you're thinking, well, we can use eccentric foundations. So this is where we circle back onto section 1.5 notice. Section 1.5 is the one you should start with, and there is a checklist. The foundation, there should be no gap between the foundation, the boundary, or passing beyond the boundary, so avoid trespass. The wall should be right on the boundary, no gap. Roof, coping stones or fiberglass stuff, and especially gutters, make sure it doesn't hang over. But make sure you design each of these elements out. It'll cause bad feelings with the neighbors and problems for you. So make sure that's there. Okay. So section 1.5 notices requirements. Again, it's more or less similar to 6, although there's an argument for saying it's not required, but you're going to, very rarely can you do a section 1 without the 6, so you might as well do both, right? So there you go. There's all the bits ticked off. Now, wholly on the adjoining owner's land, 1.5, what do we mean by that? Go back a bit. So let's get the magic wand out. Okay, happy days. So there's a line of junction, and this is the boundary. The footings are right up to it. Now, eccentric footings are sort of wider and deeper than normal footings. I probably can't tell on this drawing, but that's the footings bit, yeah, right up to the boundary. The wall, right up to the boundary, no gaps, yeah. And this is a fiberglass joint, but it's right up to the boundary. There's no gutter overhanging. There's no coping stones blowing over. So those minor details, important to get them right. I hope you understand why. You don't want to end up being accused of trespass. Again, this is a plan. So there's your extension, there's your house. And in this scenario, they've combined both the drawings. So it's better to combine them if you can. This is a detail. I might put it in the next version of our booklet. So just be aware of that. I don't think it's in the current one. And here's a site map. Get this out of the way. This is a site plan, sorry, I was covered over. Basically, it shows your building, where the extension's going to go, or the building works are going to go, and the neighboring house. Usually get a road name on it, but I've taken it out. So that's it. It's those 3 things that are very, very simple, and your architect will do them. Amazing how many times they forget to give it to us. But that's it. Start with a section 1.5 notice. Bingo. Now, here's a checklist. You draft, you do the land registry search, and you send the notices, and you do a 10.4 notice. So this is definitely missing out of that government booklet. Sorry, government. And these are really simpler versions of the notices. They're in the PDF. Download it. Go for it. It's absolutely free. It's in the description. And I'm hoping you found all this stuff useful. As we're on YouTube, the fee for all this information is a click, a like, and a subscribe. Sorry, a like, a share, and a subscribe. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time, and hope to see you next week. I hope this has been useful. Let me have some feedback, comments, all the rest of the good stuff. And please, if you can give us a subscription, it'll help us to